All right, let's just get this out of the way. And be honest, did you name your motorcycle? Was it something tough like Black Widow? Or maybe something totally unexpected like Jeff?
My name is Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff sounds like a solid name for a steel beast that can do 100 miles an hour and has a grudge against potholes. If you did name your bike, you're not alone. And if you didn't, well, you're probably already judging the rest of us right now, and that's okay. We can take it. For some bikers, naming your ride is a sacred rite of passage. For others, it's like admitting you wrote fan fiction about your toaster. So today we're diving into the weird, personal, emotional, and sometimes utterly ridiculous world of naming your motorcycle. And by the end of this video, whether you ride an ADV named Brutus or a Yamaha named the one that doesn't leak, you'll see that naming a bike isn't just a quirky hobby. It says something about you as a rider. So let's talk. Okay, so you might be wondering, wait, this is seriously a thing? People name their motorcycles? Yes, they do. And it's way more common and more fascinating than you might think. Some folks do it with pride. They give their bike a name like Stella or Nightshade, maybe even talk to it before a big ride. Others, they think the whole thing is kind of silly. But here's the deal. This is not just some random motorcycle quirk like wearing fingerless gloves in the rain or debating synthetic oil types in motorcycle forums. Naming your bike touches on how we relate to the machines that we ride and why we ride in the first place. It's more than just slapping a nickname on some chrome. And it may even have some surprising historical roots that'll have you going, maybe this isn't as goofy as I thought it was. Hey look, I will go first. I would not say I'm on team name your ride. I just kind of nickname my bikes what they actually are, like the Nomad, or the Fat Boy, or the 900, or the Mean Streak. So now it's your turn. Let's get into it. All right, so here's where things get interesting. Because when it comes to naming your bike, biker culture is a bit split, like oil and water kind of split, or sport bikes and cruisers at a stoplight. Some folks will tell you naming your ride is basically sacred. Others, they'll look at you like you just told them you named your lawnmower Brenda with a straight face. But here's the truth. Both sides have a point. For some riders, a name gives their bike an identity. It makes the relationship feel personal. For others, it's just a machine. They bought it to ride, and slapping a name on it feels a little childish maybe. And look, this isn't just a generational thing either. I've met old school riders who treat their motorcycles like trusted war steeds, name them things like Old Iron or Big Bess. And I've also met a sport bike rider who called his Yamaha Bluey McBoom Boom. So yeah, it's not about age, it's more about attitude. It's like tattoos, patches, or custom paint jobs. It's just another piece of biker self-expression. It's saying, this bike isn't just off the lot, it's mine, and it's got a story. And then there's folks on the other side who say, I don't need to name it, I just need to ride the hell out of it. And I respect both sides. Because one of the things I love about the motorcycle community is just how wide the tent really is. So wherever you land on this subject, you're in good company. So let's say you do name your bike. Why? What is it about this hunk of metal, rubber, gas, and grease that makes you want to treat it like a living thing? Well, maybe it's because to a lot of riders, their motorcycle isn't just a machine. It's a companion, a partner in crime, that one reliable friend that's always ready to go when life gets loud and messy. See, riding isn't just about getting from point A to point B. If it were, we'd all be driving minivans with cup holders and backup cameras. It's about the experience, the silence inside your helmet, the way a long ride clears your head better than any therapy session ever could. When you've shared that much with your bike, it's not just the bike anymore, it's your bike. And when something becomes yours in that kind of way, when it's seen you through rain and wind and breakdowns and near misses and sketchy gas station burritos at 2 a.m. in the morning, you start to see it as more than just metal. You start to feel like it gets you. I've heard riders say things like, she always pulls hard when I need her to. And when people start talking like that, naming the bike just kind of happens naturally. It's the same reason we name cars and ships and planes and even guitars. Anything we form a deep personal bond with, especially if it carries us somewhere, physically or emotionally, it feels like it deserves an identity. And let's be honest here, it's not just about the bond. It's also about personality. Your bike says something about you, your style, your taste, your ride philosophy. A slammed cruiser with loud pipes and a sissy bar? That thing might be Reaper. Whereas a neon green sport bike with all the tech? Probably something like Kamikaze or Hyperion. And a vintage cafe racer with rust in all the right places? That bike's name is Maggie, and you can't convince me otherwise. The name you give your bike often reflects you, or at least the version of you that you are when you ride. And that's the version that matters the most to a lot of us. So maybe naming your bike isn't all that silly at all. Maybe it's one of the most honest things you can do as a rider. Now that we've talked about how deep this connection can get, let's take it even deeper. Because sometimes naming your bike isn't just about personality. It's about history, culture, and even grief. All right, so now we know that naming your bike can feel pretty personal. It's your partner, it's not just a machine. But let's dig a bit deeper, because that name, it usually doesn't just pop into your head out of nowhere. A lot of riders, maybe even most riders, don't just pick a name because it sounds cool. They're drawing inspiration from something. A memory, a story, a vibe that they're going for, maybe even a person that they loved or lost. So let's rewind for a second, all the way back to World War II. When British dispatch riders, those guys riding single-cylinder motorcycles into enemy territory, would often name their bikes. They weren't doing it for fun or for Instagram clout. They were doing it because it gave them something human to hold on to when surrounded by chaos. It was their way of creating normalcy, a shred of control. You name something when you want to connect to it, when you need it to mean something more than it physically is. Fast forward to today, and it's not so different. Some riders name their bikes after a lost loved one. Maybe a brother who also rode, or a dad who passed away before you could take that long trip together. Others might name their bikes after a partner or a favorite song, or even a movie character that embodies how the motorcycle makes you feel when you're riding it. And one story sticks with me because I love this show, but one guy I met named his bike Serenity after the ship on the show Firefly. Why? Because he said the bike was the only thing keeping him sane during his divorce. So yeah, sometimes it's about honoring, sometimes it's about healing. And yeah, sometimes it's simply because Rogue Destroyer sounds like a sweet name for a street glide. So if you've ever caught yourself calling your bike he or she, or you've got a name floating around in your head but you're not really sure if it's dumb, trust me, you're not alone. There's a long legacy of riders giving meaning to the machines that carry them through life. And those names, they're usually telling a story. The question is, what story is your bike telling? Okay, so we know a lot of riders name their bikes. We know where some of those names come from. And we know part of the why is because we feel a connection to it like it's a companion. But why do we feel the need to humanize our machines? Any machines. Giving a name to your motorcycle is a form of anthropomorphism. And that's just a fancy word for saying treating something non-human like it's a human. It's what we do when we yell at our GPS or apologize to the toaster for knocking it off the counter. Or in this case, when we talk to a 700-pound two-wheeled beast like it's our trusty sidekick. And you know what? There's actually psychology behind it. Psychologists say we tend to do this when something feels important to us, when it's powerful, mysterious, or plays a major role in our lives. But we can't fully control it, so we humanize it. We give it a personality and a name, so it helps us feel connected and maybe a little more in control. And for bikers, that checks out because your motorcycle isn't just your ride. It's your freedom, your escape. It's your adrenaline rush. And sometimes it's your therapy. So yeah, of course we humanize it. Like, this isn't just a stock machine. This is mine. And she's called Rebel Rose. And get this, studies have shown that people who name their vehicles, pets, and their plants tend to feel more attached to them and are more likely to take good care of them. So if you name your bike, you may actually be riding safer, maintaining it better, and treating it with more respect. And that's not weird. That's actually kind of smart. But now let's not get carried away here. I am not saying you got to name your bike to be a real rider. Far from it. In fact, there's a whole camp of riders out there that flat refuse to name their bikes. All right, so far we've been talking about riders who do name their bikes, but let's flip it. Because there's a solid group of riders out there that just flat won't do it. At least for the moment, I find myself in this camp. When lots of riders argue it's unnecessary, even corny, honestly, that seems kind of valid. Some see it like this. A motorcycle is a machine. It's a tool. It's built for performance, not poetry. You don't name your torque wrench, so why would you name your two-wheeled torque monster? You buy it, you ride it, you take care of it. That's the whole deal. I've even met a few folks who used to name their bikes until they had to part ways with one that meant a lot to them, and now they don't do that anymore. They don't want to get that attached to it again, which in and of itself seems a little strange to me. And honestly, this is where motorcycle culture really shines, because both perspectives, the name givers and the no-namers, reveal just how diverse and really layered our motorcycle community really is. It's just another way we show who we are. And that variety, that's exactly what makes motorcycling so damn cool. All right, here's the real question. How many bikers actually name their bikes? Is this something most of us are doing in secret, like we're all afraid someone's going to take away our biker card? Or is it way more common than we think? Well, it turns out there's actually some data out there. Now, this probably isn't very scientific, but according to some community polls that I ran across out there, 57% of riders admitted that they've named at least one of their motorcycles in their riding career. Which means if you're in a parking lot with 10 other riders, odds are pretty good that they're all riding Zeus, or the Punisher, or Midnight, or Billy.
Oh, Billy.
And it does seem like cruisers and touring riders are far more likely to name their bikes than sport bikes riders or ADV riders. Then again, I do know a guy who owns an R6 who named his bike Needle. And an ADV guy we met at the Barber Vintage Motorcycle Festival last year, he called his BMW GS Beastie Boy. So it's not a hard rule, it's more of an observation. Look, there's not a lot of hard stats out there, but just scroll through any motorcycle forum or hang out at a rally, and it's clear. Naming your motorcycle is way more common than most people think. Whether it's your first beat-up Rebel 250 or your fully kitted out Road Glide, it is completely normal to look at that bike and say, yep, you're Ghost Rider now. But you know, while we're on the subject, it does make me wonder about a question we probably should be asking. Like, is there anything unhealthy about this whole naming your bike thing? All right, let's get a little bit introspective here for a minute. Like, should we be concerned that someone's actually talking to their motorcycle like it's a real thing? Well, here's where things get interesting, because on the surface, naming your motorcycle seems like classic anthropomorphism. Now, according to psychologists, this behavior is perfectly normal. In fact, anthropomorphism is something that the human brain is wired to do. It helps us make sense of the world, especially when we're dealing with complex, powerful, and uncontrollable forces, like weather or fate, or, carburetors. So no, naming your motorcycle is not some big red flag. It's not a sign that you've lost touch with reality. It's a sign that you have a reality, one that includes deep ties to something that takes you places and helps you feel alive. Now, that being said, sure, anything can go too far. If you're canceling plans because your motorcycle is mad at you, or you're avoiding new friendships because Shadow Fire is your only real companion, yeah, maybe pump the brakes a little bit and go talk to a real human. But for most of us, naming our motorcycle isn't about delusion. It's about meaning. It's no different than someone naming their boat or a musician naming his favorite guitar. These things carry memories. They carry you. Of course they get a name. And honestly, once a motorcycle's got a name, it can change the way you ride. We've clearly established that there's a lot of psychology and culture and stories and split opinions that go into naming your motorcycle. But there's one more question we haven't asked, and that's, does naming your motorcycle change how you ride? And honestly, I think it can. Not in some magical, mystical way. I mean, your motorcycle isn't going to suddenly grow wings just because you named it Dragon Slayer. But naming it, that does kind of do something to you as a rider. It personalizes the connection. It makes it feel like more than just a machine. And when something feels personal, we treat it differently. Riders who name their bikes tend to treat them better. They talk about their bikes with more pride. If your bike has a name, you're probably a little more forgiving when something goes wrong. Instead of throwing a wrench at it in frustration, you start to ride with your bike, not just on it. And coincidentally, that bond might make you a better, more mindful rider. Of course, it's not universal. I mean, not every rider who names their motorcycle is suddenly a Zen master of the road. But for a lot of riders, naming the bike deepens the sense of responsibility. You don't ignore a weird noise when your bike's got a name. You don't skip an oil change when your bike's got a personality. It stops being just maintenance and starts feeling like taking care of a trusted partner. So if naming your bike makes you ride better, treat it better, and feel better, do it. And if not, that's fine too. Just don't make fun of Jeff the Fat Boy. He's sensitive. I'm kidding. We did not name her Fat Boy Jeff. So after all of that, should you name your motorcycle? Honestly, that's not up to me. That's up to you. Naming your bike does not make you more legit, and not naming your bike does not make you less connected. What it does do, if you choose to, is it just gives you one more way to make that machine yours. So now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments, have you ever named your motorcycle? What's the name? And more importantly, why? I want to hear the stories behind those names, and I mean the weird ones, but also the touching ones. And heck, while we're at it, the ones that make no sense unless you were there. You know somebody's out there riding a bike called Princess Doom Cookie, and I need to hear all about it. So guys, thanks for playing along with this. If you enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up. Maybe share it with somebody who's on the fence about riding. And in the meantime, whether your bike is named or not, ride hard, stay salty, and we'll see you in the next one.